So, welcome everyone. I'm Alexander Mihalcha, and today we have one of the industry leaders, Stuart Booth, VP of NMA and APAC of Alliance. Welcome, Stuart. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very good, thank you.
Great. And before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what Alliance does?
Sure. So Alliance is a guest experience platform. So we work with lots and lots of the major hotel brands globally, and what we provide is basically a seamless guest experience from sort of after they book the room through to the point of checking out. We can control that guest journey all in one place through things like guest messaging. We build apps, mobile key, contactless check-in, payments. But the difference is with us is that we do it all under one roof as opposed to sort of multiple providers. We've been in the industry now for about 15 years. And as I said, we work with some of the world's most recognized brands and help them really, really customize and refine that guest journey.
Okay, that's fascinating. And basically, what inspired you to join Alliance? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
I first came across Alliance about a year before I joined the company, and I found it very, very interesting the direction that Alliance was going in. And the person I met from Alliance told me a couple of things that were coming down the pipeline, and the things that were changing on the guest experience side of the industry. I've been in the industry for 18 years, and I've seen a lot of change. But some of the things that they told me about were really, really inspiring. I also saw somebody from Alliance do a talk at an event, and I found the whole thing just very, very interesting. So when they approached me, it was a bit of a no-brainer.
Okay, interesting. But for example, looking back, what would you wish you've done differently in those early days?
In the early days of joining Alliance, what do I wish I'd have done differently when I first joined Alliance? I think I would probably take a little bit more time to understand the technical side of things, the back end of things.
Yeah.
Because in my role in commercial, I deal a lot day to day with the client side of things, and we've got a fantastic team of people that are so clever, it's unreal. But yeah, I wish I'd spent more time really, really trying to get under the hood
Okay.
of how the technical side works, because I've been here nearly 2 years now, and every day somebody still says something to me where you sort of go, what? Because there is such a massive amount of tech that goes into our platform. So yeah, I think it would be that.
Right, right. And also, could you walk us through Alliance evolution from consultancy to becoming a comprehensive guest journey solution?
Yeah, so I think it was a bit of a natural progression. So Alliance, as you said, started off as on the consultancy side of things, sort of back in the early 2000s, and that was very much working on kind of bespoke digital projects and mobile apps and web experiences. So there was a natural progression into product from there, because the sort of people that Alliance began working with, which is your really super luxury brands like Four Seasons. As technology progresses, is the need to add on to these platforms. So Alliance built the app for Four Seasons. It was incredibly successful, but technology progresses, and because technology progresses, the guest need changes. So and as that happens, you have to build along with it. So it was very much a no-brainer that Alliance moved into the product side of the business.
Okay, interesting. But for example, what inspired the transition from recommending solutions to building your own technology?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to having identified a need. I think so. Alliance went on to build its own proprietary platform, which is called AXP, which is the Alliance Experience Platform. So as things became more digitized and more handheld, and then that need to be mobile ready, Alliance built things like its concierge platform, improved workflows, sort of guest communications as well, which became really important as technology evolved. And then from there, we had that great big jump again, and we had that thing that happened in 2020 that none of us want to talk about anymore, where contactless became incredibly important. So we had this big push on contactless check-in, which has stayed ever since. So on top of that, then there was analytics. People needed to know more analytics. We needed different layers of what level of detail we could learn about the guests. So as all this sort of stuff has progressed, Alliance has had to keep up with it, even to the point now where we're actually future proofing
Yeah.
the solution as well. So not only do we have to keep up with what's going on now and build what's going on now, we also have to future proof, and we have to get ahead of the game so that when these brands turn around and say this is happening, we need to look at this. We're already there, and we're spending a lot of time at the moment making that happen.
And I have a curiosity by then. So, how has the luxury hotel guest journey transformed over the past few years?
Massively, absolutely massively. I'm going to show my age a little bit, but it's really not that long ago when you would book a room, you would turn up at the hotel, you would stand in the lobby in a line, and then you would get to the front of that line, and the lovely person behind the reception desk would then start the sort of the check-in process, and they would start filling things in on the PMS, head down, typing away on the keyboard,
Yeah.
while at the same time handing you a physical registration card that you had to fill in with things like your nationality, your address, your number plate of your car if you had one, etc. While you're doing that, they've also now got to cut you a key. So they're also physically cutting you a key, or even older than that, giving you one of the old school door keys. And then they stop doing that and they ask you for your guest preferences. Do you want a newspaper in the morning? Do you want a wake up call? And then they say, right, do you want to book a table at the restaurant tonight? And you say, yes, and then you discuss your time, a bit of hotel information. And then on top of that, in the really luxury sort of old school kind of properties, they would give you the printed itinerary as well.
Yeah.
So all of this is a very, very long and very expensive process. People stay at luxury hotels normally, or in times gone by when the technology wasn't there, they stayed in these luxury hotels because they love that high touch feeling.
Yeah.
Waited on hand and foot by fantastic attentive staff. Now that technology has moved on, and I know we're going to talk about this probably more later, but now technology has really moved on to that mobile ready lifestyle, and the generation that are coming through now and the generation that are going to be the next travelers. It's an entirely different guest journey because you need to meet the needs of those travelers. So it's
Right.
changed absolutely exponentially.
Okay, interesting one. And also, could you walk us through how your solution creates a seamless experience from booking to checkout?
Yeah, sure. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the word seamless. No, that's exactly what we're going for. So what we want to be able to take a guest from the point of booking the room. We want to take them on the entire guest journey to the point they put their head on the pillow to the point they check out, all under one roof. Okay, so we can do the whole entire guest journey in that way through several different means and different modules that we offer. So, if I give you an example of how that would work in a kind of a real life scenario, somebody books a lovely hotel in London. They will then get communications from the hotel. And that communication will basically tell them that, there's the messaging option there via whatever channel they want. I mean, we offer 13. So WhatsApp, SMS, WeChat, you name it. So they would choose their communication channel. They're also given the option to check in. They're also given the option to cut a key in one way or another. So if you put that into a flow, into an example, somebody's flying into Heathrow. They have the ability to message the property via one of the many channels. Say they want a car to pick them up at 10:30 in the morning. So the message comes through to the platform at the property,
Yeah.
and that can go to one person in concierge, or it can go to concierge and front desk. It's however the hotel wants to set it up. That message is received in exactly the same system, so no jumping out into other different systems. The concierge or the front desk person, will just use the concierge in this example, can then go into the concierge part of our platform where they have all the list of their vendors. And this is just a small part of the concierge platform, but they have a full list of their vendors and they want to book the car. They can do that, but it's not just a question of booking a car. We can go right down into the granular detail of what car do they want. So is it a Mercedes C-Class, E-Class, that kind of thing. Once that's booked,
Okay.
it then goes back to the guest's live itinerary that we provide them on their phone with all their stay details, and then that car and anything else they book will be added onto that itinerary with full details, times, etc. and we show it's physically confirmed with the 2 ticks, because that's what people are used to now. With the people, everyone uses WhatsApp and various other means of communication.
Yeah.
Tick provides tells you it's done. So the guest is now happy. He's got his car booked. But then what they can do is they can then check in as well. So we can check in completely contactlessly, and in that as well, we can even do identity verification checks as well. So all these things that you would normally stand in line to do, we're eradicating, and we're putting that onto a digital format for you. So you can check in, do your ID verification, and all that is obviously updated on the hotel side as well. So far we've covered communication, we've covered booking an activity or a car or anything you need to book. We've checked in seamlessly. But then if I'm that guy who's got a 15-hour flight, I'm arriving in the morning, I don't want to speak to anybody. I just want to get in my car, say hello to the guy driving, get to the hotel, go to my room, have a shower, go to sleep. What I can also do is I can actually download the key through various means to my phone. Now, the normal way that people are used to with that is the digital key in the app, the Bluetooth key. We're lucky that we've now got a step further than that. We can do that, but what we can also do is the mobile key and wallet, where we can web provision a hotel key to somebody's Apple or Google phone wallet as well. So with that, the room number will be automatically updated when the PMS updates it at the property. So the guest can literally have the choice. And this is a massive, massive point of what I'm sort of talking about here, is we give the guest the choice. Does the guest want that high touch? Do they want to go in, talk to the concierge, talk to the person behind reception, and then go up to their room? Or do they want to be the guy who just wants to shower and go to bed? And he can have a completely low-touch experience while getting all the fantastic experience of the luxury property. But he can have a completely low-touch experience that suits that person, suits that particular guest by using the system. And then again, obviously, once they're in their room, they can use the system for whatever they want in terms of, messaging, etc. And they can also check out through it as well. So we can tokenize payment. It's a very, very wide-reaching system, but we can make the guest completely contactless from end to end, or give them the choice.
Yeah, plus the customer experience is essential in this, and is very, very precious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And for example, what role has mobile wallet integration played in revolutionizing room access?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if you look at the kind of where this started, right? So we, years and years ago, we had the old key that went in the door, and then we sort of moved from there to the plastic key, and then we moved from the plastic key, even though it was still very dominant, we moved to the mobile key and app, the Bluetooth key.
Yeah.
And now we've got the next iteration of that, which is everything that we live our lives on the mobile phone. So it's completely changed the game. The toughest point about it, and something that we've had a really good amount of input in with the partners on this, the plan is that every mobile key and wallet has to be able to do exactly what a plastic key could do. So if you think about some of the things you would always use your plastic key, you'd always have two printed. When you go away with your partner, they always say, do you want one key or do you want two? Well, how do you do that with a mobile key and wallet? So all these things like that have to be taken into account. So, we have mobile sharing, key sharing on that. We also sort of need to look after the safety aspects of having a mobile key and wallet, because a plastic key can be anywhere. A mobile key and wallet is on somebody's phone. So all this stuff has had to be taken into account and covered off, and it's all been very, very successful. We've now got thousands of rooms that are doing this on Apple and Google. But on top of that, there's the kind of the ESG side of it as well. There's the side of how we're getting rid of tons and tons of plastic on a yearly basis. So what we can do is, we have this problem where the plastic keys only have a certain amount of usage in them. So I've been told, it's somewhere between 8 to 10 stays before a plastic key basically loses the ability to work. So they're not very long lasting. You end up with a lot of plastic left over. Also, the chips in them can't be recycled. So from an ESG perspective, an environmental perspective, again, this has made an absolutely massive difference. And then, where do we go with the next iteration of that is, we turn it into, we look at passes, loyalty. So, your gym membership, does it cut you? They now quite often come on a pass on your phone. And when's the last time, question for you, when's the last time you checked into a flight and had a printed, boarding pass?
Never.
It goes on your phone as a pass now. This is something
Yeah.
that people are really, really used to already. They've just never been able to have this option of having like a key on your phone. And on top of that, you can have it on the watch as well. I mean, it's an absolutely brilliant piece of technology. I just think once we, when we move forward with this and we have passes on the phone as well, where you can imagine you're a brand and, you're a very loyal customer to that brand. You stay in the brand in London, you fly to New York, you stay in the same brand there. All those stays
Yeah.
will be on the pass on your phone. And you have all that information ahead of time and you only need one key. So, that's where we're heading with this. So it's making an absolutely massive difference to the way guests are staying in hotels at the moment.
Yeah, interesting journey. But for example, how are you seeing luxury hotels' attitudes shift regarding contactless experiences?
Surprising amount, I think, is the best way to put it. So, I remember having a conversation not that long ago with the CTO of a very well-known luxury brand. And we were talking about contactless check-in and things like that. And he really, really surprised me because he turned around and said, yeah, I'm looking at kiosks. And I thought, well, that's, that really surprised me. I never thought I'd see a kiosk, an iPad check-in in a super luxury brand. I never thought that would be a thing. And then I kind of thought about it for a bit and I thought, it's about keeping the balance, right?
Yeah.
It really is about keeping the balance. So, we work very closely with the clay door, with the concierges. And until you get into this world, you do not realize just how knowledgeable and how dedicated these guys are in hotels, the concierges. I mean, they're absolutely phenomenal what they add to a guest stay. You don't want to get rid of that. You don't want to change that. You don't want that to go from the hotel industry. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of luxury hotels. And as I say, these guys are so dedicated and so knowledgeable. There's something else. But what you do need to do is find a balance because, times have changed. Generations are changing. And, my daughter, I've got two daughters, 4 and 11, and both of them are incredibly proficient on an iPhone. To the point where the 4 who's coming up 5 now, she can open the phone, she can get the app, she can download apps, she knows what she's doing. And the 11-year-old, scarily, is getting to the point where she understands the payment side of it as well.
Yeah.
These guys are going to be travelers at some point. These guys are used to this touchscreen 3-click lifestyle. Right. So, you have to have that balance. And that's something that we've worked on and we're very, very cognizant of, is that we need to keep that balance. Yes, the luxury hotels, contactless check-in is now very, very important. But with our system, how do we balance that with the concierges and keeping that luxury feel? So, contactless check-in has become incredibly prevalent now in luxury stays. I think it's very important to say as well that on the flip side, on the economy sector, they need it for a different reason, or they want it for a different reason, but it's become really, really important because on the economy side of things, it's also about being cost effective. Yeah. So contactless check-in now is huge in that sector. We're working with some of the biggest economy brands in the world at the moment on how we really define and simplify that guest journey to be as contactless as possible. So, it's incredibly important on both sides.
Okay, but you mentioned about the luxury experience. And how do you maintain the luxury experience while reducing the human touch points?
That's a kind of a hard one. I think it's not about reducing. This is the thing. It's not about reducing the touch points, right? It's about technology complementing them. That's the important thing. It's, as I said a minute ago, it's not there to get rid of any aspect of the luxury stay, but technology now is such an important thing of everything we do. You think what we do with our mobile phones now, it's quite scary.
Yeah.
Everything is on our mobile phones. We communicate, we text message, we take photos, we do social media, we work. Occasionally we make a phone call on them. But everything is done now on our mobile phones. So it's not so much about, as I say, about removing or reducing any touch points. It is really how you use this technology to complement what's already there. And again, that goes very much back to giving the guest the choice on that side of things.
Okay, interesting. And walk us through how Alliance addresses these challenges. What makes your approach unique?
I think from our side, what makes us unique is, as a company, there's a very overused saying in our industry, which is for hoteliers by hoteliers, right? It's a very overused thing to say. At Alliance, we have got a lot of ex-hoteliers, but what makes us very unique in our approach is that we've got everybody working at Alliance, from ex-concierges, ex-GMs, ex-consultants from some of the most well-known consultancies in the world, people who have been in the industry for 18 years, like me, always on the supplier, always on the tech side. Our kind of the way we look at things is we're not for hoteliers by hoteliers. We're for hoteliers by just a lot of different expertise coming together. And that's where and I know I keep talking about this balance, but that's how we managed to maintain this really great balance. We've got some of the best technical people I've ever worked with. But what you cannot beat is a guy who used to be a GM of a luxury hotel. Because as much as I can turn around and say, well, I think it should be this, the technical guy should turn around and say, well, I think it should be this because of this reason. The guy who ran a luxury hotel goes, yeah, but you didn't think about this for the guest. And you go, oh, God, yeah, he's right. And that is what, as a company, that's what makes us very unique. From a technological standpoint, it's what gives us that balance, that we understand from both sides. We understand from the guest side, we understand from the technical side, but we understand from the hotelier, the concierge, the person behind the front desk, the GM. We understand how it affects them as well. So that enables us to build an incredibly good, incredibly sort of malleable, strong product. So
Basically, you basically take the entire funnel and add value on every single touch point of the guest.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where the experience comes from. So we can bring these different experiences in as a team that we're very good at doing between us, and then we can turn it into one great idea, which has worked very well so far.
Yeah, right. And I often find that innovative solutions face the initial skepticism. And for example, when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
I think, I would probably say that they think it's a one-size-fits-all solution. That's the biggest misconception. I think until we take hoteliers kind of down this road of, how is this going to work for you? It's very much, I need a messaging platform. I need to check people in contactlessly. Okay, great. And then when you have these further discussions with them, you actually find out that the messaging platform is one very small part of what they actually need. So what we're trying to break down here is the fact that you don't need these different providers to do this. You need 17 different screens to book a car for a guest, or to answer a message, or to put a service request in, or something like that. You don't need, that is not what you need anymore. You need it to be simplified, and you need it to be seamless. And so that's a massive misconception, I think, with hoteliers. Just think, right, we get out the box, and that's great. Out the box works, but everyone thinks that every solution is the same in our particular part of the industry, and it's very much not. I think the other misconception with Alliance would be that we only sort of work in the luxury sector. And one of the things that the mobile key and wallet has given us is that fantastic ability now to really branch out into all the sectors within hospitality. So we're now working with everybody Everyone up from sort of the lower star ratings right up to the super luxury brands. So it's just increasing our experience no end.
Yeah, of course. Interesting. And now, looking at a broader industry, what emerging technologies are you most excited about for enhancing the guest experience?
Again, I think this is something that everybody's getting fed up of hearing about, but AI is going to be the biggest factor, the biggest change that we see in the industry, and I think that's not going to be just from guest interaction. That's one thing that's great. I think there's going to be a lot of removing manual tasks through AI. I think that's going to be a huge thing for
Yeah,
hotels in terms of cost saving, but not also just spending time with the guests. If we can take away some of these manual everyday tasks, then we can spend more time with our guests. So that's one side of it. But I think where it's really, really, really going to hit home, I think, is the absolute level of personalisation that we see now in hotels. And we talk about these different generations that are coming through, right? And I'll give you an example. The generation that's coming through as the next level of traveller, they've had everything basically served to them all their lives by social media, these guys have never missed a TV program in their
yeah,
lives, right? They've never had to hit play and record on the VHS recorder like I did when I was a kid, showing my age again, where if you didn't do that, you'd never see that program again, as far as you knew. Everything is on demand, everything's on catch up. They've never used a map because they've never had to.
right.
So we've got a generation coming through that is used to being served what they need on a very, very, very hyper personalized level.
Yeah,
So AI will drive this to the next level, I think. So I think the personalization in upselling and guest experience is going to be a massive thing that's going to come through. I also think in-room technology is going to really, really change. People say that the hotel room should be an extension of your house, and now our house is smart. You
yeah,
know, a lot of people, we've got high-speed internet. Not me, as you can tell, because I live on a farm, but everyone else has high-speed internet. You have, heating controlled by your mobile phone. Yeah, everything is just done at the click of a button. So now, if they're going to be an extension of your house, the hotel rooms need to be smart as well. So I
yeah,
think we can see a lot of that coming through, a lot of big change from that. But again, if you take it all back round, that's all going to be AI driven.
yeah. Of course, of course. And for example, how do you see millennial and Gen Z travelers shaping the luxury hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to sort of what I just mentioned. I just think until we can understand that these guys are hyper personalized, right? Everything they do is hyper personalized. You know how Facebook works. You look at something on Facebook, 15 minutes later, everything you look on Facebook is that first thing you looked at, just from different providers, because it understands what you like very, very quickly and it serves it up to you.
Yeah,
So hotels, they have to understand there has to be that level of personalization that will go into that Gen Z and millennial traveller. Um, and I guess you could say a tail end millennial, I guess, just. Um, but it goes back to that, they've never had to use a map. Some of these guys, everything is just on tap. It's a 3-click generation. Everything needs to be straightforward. It needs to be personalised. It needs to be as little clicks as possible, and it needs to be digital.
right.
And that is how those guys are going to shape the way we travel. It's happening already with the contactless check-in, with guest messaging, and now they say that the mobile key and wallet. It's happening already because everything
Mhm.
now has to work with one of these, and that is the big difference that generation will A, create, and B, expect. You will probably not get a repeat guest out of a millennial or a Gen Z if you do not have the technology that they're used to using on a hourly basis of their lives.
Okay, but on the other side, in your opinion, what advice would you give to hotels considering this digital transformation?
Um, I think two pieces of advice. I think one would be don't wait too long.
Okay,
As an industry, and again, I've been in this, pretty much my whole career. As an industry, we love technology, but we're not always the quickest to adapt to it, and the quickest to bring it in. And I think it's more important now than ever to get ahead of the curve, because again, travelers, they like technology, they like to
yeah,
use technology. It changes at such a great speed now that old technology that you've got in properties is now having to be retrofitted to try and sort of keep up. So everything's having to have upgrades and things like that to try and keep up with the way things are changing now. So my advice would be, don't wait too long. But my other side of my advice would be, when you do it, build something that works for you. For your
yeah,
guests, for your property, for your guest journey. You know, out the box stuff, it works fantastically well. But when you're considering it, actually think about what you really need. Don't just go, right, we need a guest messaging system. How are you going to check those guests in? So once the guest sends you a WhatsApp, then what are you going to do? Are you going to write it down on a piece of paper? No, you want to build the next part of your system. So really kind of do what works for you. Don't just jump into it and think single-mindedly. Think about the bigger picture of the tech.
right. Great advice, though. And it sounds like you're ahead of the curve in many ways, which makes me curious about your growth plans. So, how are you looking to grow for the next year?
For the next year, we've got a lot of stuff planned with the mobile key and wallet. There's a lot of plans for that. We're also investing a lot in AI at the moment, and again, most companies are doing that, but we like
Of
to think
course.
that given our background, that we should hopefully be ahead of the curve on that one. So for us, it's about continued growth. We are in talks with some really, really, really exciting projects, like things I wouldn't have dreamed of working on in previous places. There's a lot going on. So for us, it's all about getting the word out there. Becoming a more well-known brand,
Yeah,
but also really pushing the envelope when it comes to the level of tech that we can provide. And I say, I said earlier, we're future-proofing. We're really looking at how we can stay ahead of this curve. So, with some of these projects we're working on at the moment, there's some of these, as I said, they're, some of the most exciting going on in the world at the moment. It's how can we build with them to really enhance, the Lions product as a whole.
right. But for example, if I gave you an extra $1 million for growth right now, where would you allocate it?
An extra 1 million.
Yeah,
If we had an extra million, I think we would probably put it towards the AI side of the business. We've got a great department that works on it, but I think again, it's something that's growing so quickly.
yeah,
It's scary how quickly how much AI is growing. It's scary for a lot of reasons. But I think we would invest more heavily in that. I think we're very invested already, but I think that's what costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and other people are also doing. So yeah, I think a million would help with
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Of course. And before we wrap up, I'm curious about what's on the horizon. So, when you look at Alliance journey over the next few years, what possibilities excite you the most?
I think it's just the sheer level of where we can go, and I'm not just saying that. I've worked at some fantastic companies in the hospitality industry, but the kind of trajectory we're on at the moment, the level of partnerships we have with some of the not only the biggest brands in the world, and that's growing monthly. This list of brands, but it's also the outside partners. The likes of the mobile key and wallet providers. Your Apples and Googles and things like that, and just how kind of embedded we are with those guys and the relationship we've got with those guys. So I think the most exciting thing at the moment is kind of that kind of sky's the limit feeling. with Alliance. We're kind of leading the sector already in what we do. We're very, very well recognised in terms of the brands that we work with and everybody else, and it's just growing on a daily basis. So where do we go from here? Only up, I think, and I
Yeah.
think that's genuinely what's exciting at the moment. So the 3 years time, I think we'd like to be a considerably larger organisation. I think we'd like to have the perfect product set. Well, I don't think we're far off, but I think we can, when we sort of bring AI into everything a lot more than we already have. I think we're going to be in a real place to sit on the top of the pile.
Okay, that's really fascinating. And for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with Alliance, what's the best way to get in touch?
Obviously, anyone can get in touch with me. It's just Stuart.Booth at Alliance.com. Obviously, we've got the website, which is www.alliance.com. On there, you've got a full list of products and the trust center and anything else you can need to get in contact with us. But, just reach out to anyone. As I say, we're in so many brands now globally that somebody will work with us at the moment. So, go down the normal routes or go down the route of speaking to your friends. It's the easiest and the quickest way is to just email me directly or anyone else at Alliance.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So thanks for joining me today, Stuart, and for this amazing podcast session. And for anyone listening, make sure to check out Alliance socials below in the description because this episode was packed with value and I can wait to see what you do next.